Mr. President, I want to talk about a heavy financial burden that too many of our fellow Americans are being forced to deal with. And what I'm talking about is student loans. And you may be surprised to know that the second most amount of debt in America, next to mortgage debt, home mortgage debt, the second largest to mortgage debt is student loan debt. $1.3 trillion, more than all the credit card debt combined in America. Student loan debt is higher than that, $1.3 trillion. So graduates recently from the class of 2016 have more than $37,000 in student loan debt on average when they graduate. To make matters worse, the federal government last week announced that it was increasing interest rates on federal student loans for this coming school year, which starts in September. For undergraduate students, rates are increased from last year, 3.76 to 4.45%, almost 0.75%. And that started on July the 1st. Well, our economy is built on ingenuity and creativity of young entrepreneurs who took a risk on something new. But today, instead of sending our graduates off to be creative and conquer the world, we're sending them off with a tremendous amount of debt that they are struggling to afford. While I was in Florida last week over the July 4th recess, I met with a group of recent graduates, and we wanted to discuss their student loans, and they were not shy about telling me about them. Many of them had high interest rates. They wondered how were they going to pay off that debt, how they were going to be able to be unshackled from that financial burden so they could get on about the business of building their career and starting a family. Let me give you some examples of the students that I met with. One young lady graduated from the University of Central Florida in 2015 with $50,000 in student loan debt. The interest rate on her debt was 4.85%. She knows that her parents who have helped her before, they're small business owners, they're not going to be able to continue to help her out financially, but she, even so, was the first person in her family to graduate from college. That student is currently attending George Washington University for grad school, after which she is estimating her total debt will be $90,000 in student loans. She told me about what every student longs to do, to purchase a home, start a family, get on with their career. But that's increasingly becoming a pipe dream for millennials because of the burden of student loan debt. Another student I met from Deltona, Florida, she works as a social worker for the homeless. She graduated with a bachelor's degree in social work and a master's degree in the same from Florida State. She's dedicated her life to public service and helping the most vulnerable among us. Yet, she is facing $75,000 in student loan debt while carrying interest rates that range from 5.4 to 6.8%. In Florida alone, students graduating with a 4-year degree are leaving an average of more than $23,000 in student loan debt. The thought of trying to start a career with that much debt is discouraging when some students, even after attending college in the first place, they're still struggling. They want to go on to grad school, or they're still in school wanting to finish their degree, but then they have that constant fear of having more and more debt when they graduate. That's not in anybody's interest, not the students, not the families, not the communities, and it's certainly not in the country's best interest. If we really want to build a strong middle class, we have to make higher education more affordable. And that's why today I am filing legislation to lower the cap on student loan interest in the so-called lender origination fees and allow those with existing loans to refinance at a lower rate, namely 4%. Remember, I told you about that one student I met that had loans that went anywhere from 5.5 up to 6.8? That was because that was the interest rate in that particular year of their education. I think they ought to be able to refinance all of that at a max of 4%. And so the bill that I am filing today, which we're calling the Student Loan Relief Act, would cap student loan interest rates for undergraduates at 4%, graduates at 5%, and parents a cap of 6%. It would also help students borrow less by ending the loan origination fees that the government charges students, to process their loan. So, for example, if it's a $10,000 loan, they'll take out a loan origination fee of $400, so the actual loan that the student gets is $9,600. These fees are taken out before the student receives the loan. The bill that we're filing would eliminate those fees altogether. And one other thing that the bill would allow any borrower with an existing federal student loan to refinance their loans one time to a lower rate. Once the federal government sets the student loan interest rates for the year, they are fixed now under current law for the lifetime of that loan, and they can't be refinanced, even if the rates go lower. That certainly not in the interest of the student. So, for example, borrowers who took out loans between July of '06 and July of '13, likely they have a fixed rate of 6.8%. And despite the significant drop in interest rates since 2013, current law bars those borrowers from refinancing their existing loans. That's not common sense. Between '06 and '13, the interest rate on student loan debt got as high as 6.8. Students that took out loans during that time are now stuck with those rates. They can't refinance that debt like you could with a home loan. This bill would fix that by letting those borrowers refinance their debt with the new loans that have the lower interest rates. Capping interest rates, ending loan origination fees, and allowing borrowers to refinance existing loans would certainly help make education more affordable for our students. And it would help to ease the financial stress that's weighing down our economy and keeping some graduates from making the types of investments that traditionally lead to stronger middle class membership, like, for example, home ownership. Sometimes, in all of the partisan back and forth, some folks begin to forget why we're here, to serve the people. And so I urge our colleagues to take a serious look at this bill and join with me in helping those we represent. We can't continue to leave our graduates saddled with so much student debt and no way out. We have to do something to ease the burden, and I believe that this is a good way to start. And so I would just conclude by recalling what I said at the outset. You may be surprised to learn that student loan debt is the second largest debt carried in America next to home mortgage debt. You can take all the credit card debt in America and combine it all, and it's not as much as the $1.3 trillion of student loan debt that is carried today. We need to help those students, and thereby we are helping our country. Madam President, I yield the floor.